Breaking the gray.
This week's episode brought to you by Inside Tracker. For more information, go to insidetracker.com/rebelscientist.
Sarah, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Russ.
Oh,
yep,
God.
I'm surviving. It's actually snowing here today.
Oh, my God. And we don't want to timestamp this, but it's April. I mean, my God. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Give you a break.
Yeah,
you need a
man.
break.
It's
been a long time, and I say that jokingly every week, but it actually has been a long time since we've seen each other. You look ravishing as usual. Gorgeous.
Thank you. Yes, you look well rested.
Thank you for our podcast episode we did a few weeks ago, because my sleep has been considerably altered. And plus, Paul he got me a nice little birthday gift as well with my wake light, my Philips wake light. So I feel rested. My hair is higher, which means I've been writing, because that's what I usually do when I write, is I just pull my hair straight up. But we're here today again because we're in the middle of going through your friends list and finding your amazing friends and going through and meeting who they are and learning something new every week. So let's meet your new friend today. I'm excited.
Yeah, so today we have Dr. Joe DiDuro, and Joe is a chiropractic doctor, but he's also an expert in photobiomodulation and resilience and a lot of other things besides. And Joe has been training me in his Pro Neuro program. So that's a coaching program for brain health, a 6-month program. So I've been trained in that, and I'm a coach for that. So that's something that we do together. So I'm hoping we can talk a bit about some of our process there and some of the aspects of the program, because I think it would be very cool. Like in particular, heart rate variability and intranasal use of light.
Ooh.
So that's light up your nose to you, Russ.
That's wonderful. And I've been reading about heart rate because I have my heart rate's been pretty high, my sitting heart rate, because I haven't moved from this chair for a year. But I'm excited. I know you've talked a lot about Dr. Joe, and I'm excited to meet you, Dr. Joe. Welcome.
Hey guys, good to be here. Good to be here.
Where are you zooming from today?
I'm in my own zone, baby.
Same here. Well, welcome.
I'm in my bubble. Thank you. It's my pleasure to participate in this. I just want to jump it off and say that I know that we are a rebel scientist here, and I think that's a good put together, but we're citizen scientists. I think a lot of people who are paying attention here are citizen scientists, and when you think about yourself and your sovereignty, that's when you become a little bit of a rebel.
Yeah.
Right? Would that be a good way to?
Yeah, I think so. Together? Yeah. It's all every week on this podcast, we talk about taking personal responsibility for your health. And I think really that's the rebellious part, because, we've been a little bit conditioned by mainstream medicine to kind of put all your faith in someone else with regards to your health and your wealth and everything else. But here on the show, we're just giving some useful tips for people who want to start taking control themselves. And yeah, you're right. Sovereignty is the name of the game here.
I mean, if you don't have self-care as one of your perspectives, you're kind of always reworking this to what's best for me. How does this work for me? And I think that's the key. You have to make a decision to be well. You don't have to make a decision really to be sick. Things will just go to the devil if you just leave them alone. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, Joe, what we've been working on is, of course, you've got your coaching program, which I'm now one of the coaches. But part of that is a step-by-step program, kind of taking people through that process of, one, how to start taking control, and then using different kinds of technologies, and also monitoring, because that's a big part of taking control of your own health, is actually monitoring what you're doing So maybe you can tell us a bit about how you've got to that place yourself.
Well, I mean, my work has been neuro rehabilitation for, pretty much my whole career. Started out as a chiropractor, then a chiropractic neurologist, and then a master's in clinical research. So we were always measuring stuff. And then when we get into the clinical world, how did you sleep? I slept good. How was your rest? I rested well. So we didn't really have any information. And, we were doing distance coaching long before the lockdown. So our ability to gather data was very limited. So you were looking through a keyhole in a dark room and, trying to examine the sounds. Oh, that sounded. So having biodata was very helpful. And then being able to put that into a dashboard that we could actually use and give, feedback to the person was really, I think you'll see that now. Telemedicine is where it's at. And, we've been doing that for some time now, right, Sarah?
Yeah, we have. And we've talked a lot on the show about different ways of measuring, from simple, just, pencil and paper and writing down up to Oura rings and the Whoop and BioStrap and other things like that. So what do you kind of recommend for people starting out? Because a lot of people listening to this are not kind of bought into the whole thing.
Well, let's just talk about this for 1 second, because from a clinical perspective, you have to treat to an outcome. I mean, we have to sit down and what's your goal, right? And then say, well, how do we arrive there? And then what problem is the decision-making gets blasted by data. How do you make a decision, when you have myriads and mounds of data and people become paralyzed, right? They can't make a choice. So they want they want the doctor to tell them what to do. They want Dr. Google to tell them what to do. I'm not sure if Dr. Google has a nice beard like me, though, right? So
nobody can see your bit. We're going to have to imagine it.
I have perfect face for radio. Don't worry. So that's the thing, is that you have to treat to an outcome. And so one of the things that we use heart rate variability as one real significant outcome, because it's sort of your joy score, and it's really a measure of your resiliency, if you will. So let's just give a quick definition before I go into there, okay? So you have a certain amount of variability in the beats of your heart. And the higher that heart rate variability versus heart rate, Russ, that you were talking about, the difference in those things is sort of like your bandwidth, if you will, your emotional, physical stress bandwidth. And if that's low or small, that means that stressors in life are going to be able to have a greater effect on you. You follow me? So how do you, manage these people? Well, the data comes in and it's raw and they don't know anything. And then, so you have to explain it to them and bring them up to speed. But the bottom line is, there are certain things that you can do to increase your resiliency, increase your scores, if you will, for being, physically, mentally, and emotionally healthier. Yeah, that's cool. And I know I've been, because the first guest we had on was Molly McLaughlin, and she was talking to us a lot about sleep. And as a challenge, I've been doing some activities to help increase my sleep. And I know that you've been helping me with the heart rate variability aspect of that, because we go through the data on a weekly basis. And that's something that you can get all this information yourself, but it's good sometimes to get someone to coach you through it, because sometimes there is a lot of information coming out of all of these gadgets. Right, data dump, and it doesn't really help you make decisions. The kind of the secret sauce, if you will, when we're dealing with people is being a brain geek, and that's why we're together, is that a traumatic brain injury will mess up your sleep terribly. It will mess up your emotions terribly. And then if you look at the end, so your brain's not going to be working right when you have a boo-boo, like concussion, fall, something sports-related injury, things like that, So that's sort of like that stress impact that you're going to have. And then how resilient are you? How can you overcome it? So many people don't really tie it together that a traumatic brain injury or boo-boo in your head is going to lower your heart rate variability. It's going to mess up your sleep. So you can't take green juice, and fix your brain. You have to actually get in there and fix it. And that's why, my work in transcranial photobiomodulation, both the head, the nose, the blood, wherever you can get it in the body, is so key for helping people like, boom, get better sleep, get better HRV, get better emotional health. I mean, when you look at it and you tie it all in, it really comes down from the brain, from that little, 3 pounds of jello up inside your skull that you carry around all day, that is your whole world. So anything that hurts the brain is going to have effects on your physical, mental, emotional, and life. And all those things are connected. When you start to gather the data, you're like, why is this not working?
Yeah.
I'm taking my green juice. I'm doing what he said, but they're leaving out the most important part, which is the part that describes your humanity, which is the stuff between your ears and behind your eyes.
So, when you talk about brain injury, then so there's physical brain injury. Is there traumatic brain injury as well? When you kind of put those in there, so understanding someone's history, if there's traumatic brain injury, I assume that also goes into the equation.
Well, you have to kind of pick the lock, Russ. So it's like, remember, if I look at my clients and I see a scar on their forehead, and I said, have you ever had a head impact, or somebody struck you, got in a fight, something?
Yeah.
No. And I said, well, I see a scar right there. Oh, well, that was nothing. I just got through the windshield and, flipped and, broke my arm. And I'm like, well, there's a scar on the outside. There's a scar on the inside. Mm-hmm. Who's addressing that? Well, because it's underdiagnosed, and because, maybe 10, 20% of these traumatic brain injuries, they linger. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have another one, and then you're going to have another one, then you're going to have another one, and then you have a life stress, and then you'll have an illness, and all this stuff is pushing the capacity of your brain and nervous system to recover. So any kind of trauma. So let's just think about how many times you hit your head before you were 10.
Yeah.
In my case, my mother, her first memories of me are me being knocked out. So just add those up, and who's addressing them? Who's cleaning those things out? Who's increasing the brain's power?
Yeah. Giving
you more capacity to deal with life stresses.
I've had so many I can't remember before 10, and after 10 was even worse.
That's what I say. And they go, well, no, I never went to the emergency room. And no, who did? I said, we get done with the football game, and the coach say, if you got any pain, put ice on it. And I said, I got a headache,
Take some Tylenol. I was knocked out cold in the first half and came back and played in the second half. Don't remember anything about it.
Tell me about it.
I have a daughter who was an active soccer player, quite good, loved watching her play, but got one concussion, recovered, and then just boom, 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 4 and within a year.
Yep.
And that was it. She couldn't concentrate. Her grades dropped. And the healing process was, she had to quit playing soccer because of the headers, but ultimately that was it. So when it comes to recovery for something like that, it's super important that you create the space to allow yourself to recover from something like that.
But let's just bring this up a little bit more. The hand gets calloused and the hoe gets smooth. That's a farmer's analogy that, let's reduce the stress. Let's become fragile. And that's really not your objective as a human. It's to become more fragile. It's to become more resilient, more anti-fragile. And so really creating the space is a great analogy, but the point is you have to create it in the space between your ears. You have to give these people the ability to increase their circulation, clean out their brain, get rid of the junk so that maybe that green juice can actually get in there. Yeah. Maybe some new fluid can get in there. And that's why the sleep is so important, because that's when you're doing your major brain repair. Mm-hmm. And when we watch people with fragmented sleep, they're not getting there. So they're just putting more trying to put more stuff into a brain that's already clogged up with inflammatory chemicals and maybe debris. Think about it. We're talking about impacts that you could see and feel, right? But in a car accident, your head, the seatbelt keeps you there, keeps you held, but your head is flying through space. And that, a head being pulled off of your body is popping nerves. Boom, 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 boom. Axons are exploding in your brain. And you're like, whoa, that's pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really bang anything. I didn't feel anything, but I'm dull afterwards.
Yeah.
And I just can't come back, and I can't go to school, and I can't do this. And I'm not a good person. I mean, everything starts to unfold, and guess what happens? You just get passed along, and because this is such a new science, Russ and Sarah, that we have stuck our toes in, and now we've stuck our whole body into it, and now we're putting light in our head and our body and up our nose because we want to be better people. We want to increase our capacity to, beat the world that's trying to beat us down.
I think we're really talking about everyone who's listening, because whether or not you've had a traumatic brain injury, we've all played in sports or had little car accidents or something or other. And you're set, if it's affecting your sleep, probably maybe one of the indicators that maybe you have got something going on there is if you have bad sleep, or is if you have terrible mood swings, or, those kinds of things are all indicators. But I think probably it's best to assume, okay, what can I do to maximize your brain? Even if you don't think you've had a traumatic brain injury, all of the things that we're going through are going to raise the game anyway, regardless.
Think about it. Like, when we talk about, let's just come at it from a couple different ways. So there's a lot of research on Holocaust survivors. There's a lot of research on like tsunami, earthquake, catastrophe. How do these people make it? So it's not a blast injury or a force on their brain, but it's a trauma. Mm-hmm. So think about this. If my Humvee blows up, right? And I don't get hit by shrapnel, but the sound wave batters my brain and hurts those nerves, is like just what it does, just like I described earlier, and creates an inflammatory cascade. Well, how come they get these emotional disorders? How come they, sleep and emotion and everything, it's all inside there. So, if you put transcranial photobiomodulation on people, their depression goes away. If you put transcranial photobiomodulation on people, their brain capacity, they become smarter. They have all these good things. So why not use the technology that we have to overcome and repair the damage from trauma?
Sarah and Joe, doctor, both of you are now going through coaching and training with this. Is the photobiomodulation something that you can apply like cryotherapy now, where I can go in and get the cold air on my swollen ankle, and then I can go in and get that done? Is it that accessible now?
I think so. The science is new, so you want to really individualize it. So yes, if you're a brain guy and you understand what's happening, or you're a clinician that takes care of these people, you may have some guidelines. I could just call them guardrails, or those blow up things that go in the bowling alley. So those are important because, we are messing with your brain. So of course, there's people that go in and do transcranial magnetic stimulation and put this big magnet on your head and blam away and say, hey, you're better now. Are you? So yes, you can do it and you can modify it, but sometimes it's more than one thing. Mm-hmm. It's more than one thing. But if you have a stack, if you're a biohacker and you're doing your stack, and you think that putting a red light panel in your house is going to increase the function of your brain, well, good, more power to you. But putting it where it needed, right in the brain, on the skull, up the nose, on the blood, that's really where you're going to get the benefits. And if you run into trouble, and some of our people do have trouble, like we take care of, cognitive athletes who want to be sharp when they go into their meetings, to all the way to, post-concussion, to people who are starting to slip in their memory, to people who are trying to help their parents, and they're caregivers for parents with Alzheimer's disease. All of those have a different flavor, and they need a little bit different spice, and that's where we come in.
Yeah. Can I go back real quick? Because my job here is to play to my level of intelligence, which is incredibly low. Amazing, So I need to you need it spoon fed a little bit. When you talk about heart rate variability, and you mentioned that the less variability, your reaction to stressors is actually probably worse. Can you talk about what is healthy variability?
So, yeah, there's a lot of debate on that. There's all these averages and everything like that. Let's just put it this way. It's people look at the heart rate variability and it's a score, right? But they don't know if it's bowling or golf, right? Bowling, you want a high score. Golf, you want a low score, right? So it's bowling, right? You want a high score. That's your resiliency. That's your happiness. That's your ability to cope, if you will, with the stuff that's coming your way. So it's a very complex number that people kind of do all these mathematics to, but it's really the kind of a measure of the chaos that's happening inside your body. You know what I mean? It's not, you're not a robot. You're a human, and you're existing in a stressful environment. That's what we're made to do, and we're made to survive. And this is kind of one of the things that if you have a low number, your chance of all death mortality goes up, and you're going to be depressed, and you're going to be down in the dumps, and you're going to be messed up. So you have to kind of have a balance between the two parts of your nervous system that really are integrating in your heart, which is your sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, and then the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. So most people are stepping on the gas all the time, and they pump the brakes and say the brakes aren't working. I go, no, take your foot off the gas a little bit and pump the brakes. Oh, that's a whole different world. So follow me? So it's all these things that are integrating, and you got to kind of look at it from a whole person perspective. And if you could have one number that would be good, it probably wouldn't be your cholesterol number,
And I mean, it's so important now because you see all these Apple Watches out there, and now everyone has that number, and they're like, what does that mean? Right? Like, I have no idea. So this is great. I think it's really helpful because it's not just telling you, when you're resting or when you're active. It's telling you a heck of a lot more, and I think that's something that we should really point out. And it's really great to know. So then that leads to understanding that then allows you to start some diagnosis and start to give you some coaching mechanisms for the individuals that you're talking to, along with what we just talked about, the history of brain trauma and things like that. Now you're getting a full scope of that person you're talking to.
I think that it's fundamental to kind of I don't mean to be pun, but shine light onto these peoples for their history. I mean, you really only get one nervous system, right? It doesn't, but you can regrow, repair, and regain, right? So you can create more neurons, you can create more freedom, you can create more connections, and that's what allows you to have more brain power. And more brain power is kind of important because that's really our humanity.
Yeah. It's flexibility, isn't it, Joe? It's flexibility in the system. You want to be able to deal with whatever's coming up. And that's really the best measure of it. And so that's the one that, to have an eye on. But the way I see it is because that, like you say, humans can be in all kinds of situations, and you want to be able to adapt to whatever situation you're facing at that moment. And if you can only go at a certain level, or if you can't speed up, or if you don't have that ability to react to stress, that's really what that measurement is. It's how well can you react to whatever the environment throws at you at that time. And so you want to aim for the greatest possible variation in your responses that you can, because that's going to be the most healthy response, is the response to the environment that you are faced with. And because you can't predict that, you need to have a really variable set of reactions. So that's the goal.
Correct. I like to think about it I mean, people, like this Apple Watch and all these trackers, they've been used by elite athletes and competitive people, and everybody's getting all their stuff tracked. But really, what about our emotional part, the emotional part? I mean, if your heart rate variability is low, you're not really working too good emotionally. Partnerships, relationships, things like that. So think of it as bandwidth or your ability to sing. If you're monotone, or if you have a variation in all the octaves that you can go,
yeah, I like that.
You have more variation. You're going to be easier to adapt to different relationships.
Wow, that is great. You're really going to be able to figure out toxic relationships then, if that's the case.
well, I did. I mean, I like that. Yeah. I like that way because there was a woman that I read that she would go on her Tinder dates, and she'd have her check her heart rate variability and see how it went. Because, what is that really?
Yeah.
What is that really? That's your vibe.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your heart rate variability is being generated, that's electrical signals coming from your heart. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can tell if you feel good in someone's presence. Yeah. Does your heart rate variability go up? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
And is that so? It's a bowling score, but you also if the variability is there, you have a high score, which is what's a healthy high score? I guess it differs by person, right?
You got to start where like how much can you bench press?
I used to be able to bench press a lot. Today, no.
Yeah, I used to bench press myself. But hey, you know what? That's the glory days. You know what I'm talking about? But, it's like you said. You have to be a patient until you can bench press 300 pounds. That doesn't make any sense. So it's not a number. It's a number as it relates to you, where you start. It's like a flexibility. How flexible are you? Physically, right? How flexible? Well, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And think of it. It's your trauma. It's your history. It's how much you moved. And, your heart rate variability is kind of, there's genetics to it. That's your bonding, how you were with your parents, how you were raised. So all of that is you, Russ and Sarah and Joe.
Yeah.
So that's your number. And the reality of it is you want it to go up.
So what if you don't have variability? So I'm measuring, I've got my numbers in front of me. I have no variability. I am stuck at a number. Can you create variability? Is that what I guess you're saying that, right?
It's resiliency and survivability. So, you know what I mean? Here's the thing. A lot of people, Russ, they start to look at these data and they go, here's my heart rate variability. They look at it and they go, this machine is wrong. Yeah. And I was like, hey, no, man, it's not the machine on your wrist that's wrong. It's the machine that's running it. So, I mean, there's a little bit of, there's a lot of inaccuracy in these trackers, but we have to kind of go with what we have until there's a better mousetrap. But the reality of it is that you're broke and you got to get fixed. And then that's when you put your foot in the ground and start to be resilient
and start to build up.
Push against.
So then, do you then tailor photobiomodulation to where people are in their variability? Is that how you sort of structure it?
No, I think the ProNeuro program is 8 different components that you really have to focus on and pay attention to. Yep. And so you kind of stack these things on top of each other. The reality of it is that as you said in the beginning, paint with a broad brush. What can I do to quickly increase my heart rate variability? What can I quickly do to help my brain function better? Well, put some light on it. Get some kind of light, put it on there, and you can get more specific and get more tailored, but light on the body is a good thing. So we can go out to the sun. It's a very good thing for you. Be outside, have the sun hit you. That's all good, to the point where we can put a specific frequency of infrared light up your nose that'll tailor to your brain. So yes and no. Okay. You can be right and not correct. Mm-hmm. So let's just start with we don't want to be right or wrong. We want to be right and correct, but right is put light on it.
The right light.
And see what happens, because that's how the body's going to start to respond. Everything's going to start to come online, and then they'll have the memory. Did you take your green tea in the morning? Oh, I forgot. Why did you forget? Mm-hmm. Right? So let's paint with a broad brush. We start with photobiomodulation to get the body online, to see what doesn't kick in. Will it change your gut microbiome? Yes. Will it change your hormones? Yes. Will it change your mitochondrial activity? Yes. And once that kicks in for a while, what's left? Once the body starts to come online and the brain starts to come online, well, what's left? Let's just pick that away.
Yeah. When you mentioned the stack and the 8, what can we've gone through them here, but can we just lay them out and and understand those? Because I know Sarah and I have spent a lot of time talking about these, but let's condense it down. We just finished a whole series of quick hacks, which is really a start of that for us, of giving people a very quick way to get started with specific things. But what are these? What's in that stack? So our listeners can kind of refocus, and we can go back to episodes and say, start here, go here. We have that, but what would be the guide that you would give them?
Let me get this for you here. We only have I gotta look over here. We only have a half an hour.
Yeah.
So hold on. But the simple things that we talk about, hold on here. We need to edit. I don't like to post edit, but really the pro neuro program is photobiomodulation is the P. R is repair, regrow, and regain. How is the science of recovery? O is optimize, supplements, so you can supercharge your performance. N would be nutrition, detox, and water, removing the barriers to your recovery. E is exercise, using simple strategies to activate your body. U is unwind, unstress, got to relax the mind. R is restore, restful sleep, re-energize. And O is oneness or connection, mindfulness. So those are broad terms that you kind of, everybody has their anagram, if you will.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter where everybody's, like, you talk to people and they're on the best probiotics in the world and drinking their kombucha and all this stuff. So you sort of got to put it, take them apart and walk them through it and say, well, I don't understand about fish oil, So that's how you do it, depending on how much, legwork they want to put in. But you must cover as many areas as possible because it's your whole day, really. So recovery, let's just put it this way. Raising your HRV, starts when you open your eyes in the morning. And that's really then how you spend your energy through the day, how you refuel your body, and then what you do to recover in your restfulness. See, so it's like, just type in 10 hacks for HRV or send me an email and I'll send you what the 10 hacks that we use that are super hacks, and there's a bunch of them. But really, you can't, like, the most garden variety thing is one, use light.
Yep.
And if you don't buy stuff, get some light on you and see what happens there.
Yeah.
As these things start to improve, then you can pick them up.
Yeah. It's super helpful. We're 20 odd episodes in here, and we've covered a huge chunk of this. I think that the restoring and the recovery piece is something that I'm happy we spent today talking about it, because it is such an important part of it. We've touched on sleep, we've touched on it, but waking recovery, right? I'm awake and I'm restoring. What are some of the tips for while I'm awake? How do I recover from a really stressful day?
Hey, so here's the scenario. One of the things is remember we said that bench pressing, right? Stuff like that. So yeah, if you could bench press 300 pounds, you're healthy, right? Quote unquote, right? Or piano playing is very good for the brain, for rehab. But if you have a stroke and your fingers don't work, or it's too challenging. So one of the things that you have to kind of get with is, how much can you strain? How much can you physically or mentally strain during the day? And what is this lifestyle stresses, like toxic relationships or stress at work or food shortages or, social inequality or the pandemic. I mean, where are you putting your energy? Because as soon as you open you're burning calories all day. You're using your ATP, your energy all day. You have to kind of start making choices. So,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Boundaries. When can you say no? When do I turn off the news? When do I stop scrolling? When do I stop?
It's true. Like, I mean, it's such an important thing you just said, and Sarah and I have talked about this too, where like, don't use the time wisely, right? Like, get off your screen. Like my wife and I have had, this last week really spent a lot of time just putting our phones on at night, right? And we're just both so busy with work and all this stuff that we're doing that it's really hard to put your phone down. It's right there next to you at bed,
75% of everyone in the world has their phone within arm's reach of them 24 hours a day, right? So it's choices, things that you have to be, so you have to, again, treat to an outcome. What do you want? Yep. And then what are you willing to give up? Like they say, ask the man if he's willing to give up the things that made him sick before you treat him.
Yeah.
Yep. So I want to point out that the thing about, how you stress your day. I mean, when we talk about resiliency is like grit plus gratitude, because people can be gritty and burn themselves right out because they're in sympathetic overdrive, but they have to learn to be calm. You can't make yourself go to sleep, and you can't make yourself relax, and you can't, do these things. You need skills. You need to develop tools and skills to be able to do these things. People say, well, I go to bed. Well, I'm going to crash. But is that a nice thing? And then I'm going to have an alarm to wake me up. I mean, is that a good psychology at all? You know what I mean? How about that's just not cool. You don't have the skill to land a helicopter rapidly. You don't have that skill. You need to learn. You need to land like a plane, real slow, like a beginner. Right? So people got to get their heads on straight, obviously. We're
at our time, and I think that's a really great place to finish, which is this is a gradual process, right? This is a marathon, and I think the one of the challenges with biohacking and quick hacks is that people want an answer right now and they want it fast, right? It's all available on Google. I should be able to go to Google and figure out how to live longer, and I want that list. And it's what you're saying. It's not that way.
Well, you said you're so busy during the day, and I would reframe that to say, how productive are you? What are you producing at the end of the day? And that's really what we want to do. We want to produce a healthy lifestyle. Like, think of it that way. If that was your goal, I want longevity, vitality, and resiliency.
That's right. Dr. Joe, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And we'll put everything in the show notes. That was brilliant. Thank you. Brilliant as ever.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Hi, thanks to everybody out there in internet land. We'll be with you if you need us.
Peace.
Peace out, Joe. Okay,
Sarah,
we're back.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm really well. Yes.
Good.
I'm in Holland, so all is good, all is calm, all is chilled out.
It's always calm in Holland. That's our next script. That's our next screenplay. It's always calm in Holland.
It's always calm in Holland, yeah.
And all these stressed people, all these stressed Dutch people, you'd be like, what are you talking about? It's always calm. It's not calm.
They don't exist. They don't exist.
That's true. It's true. Well, let's get into it. What do we? Let's get through all of this today. It's really important stuff today. We're digging into it.
Yeah, we're digging into it. And we had Dr. Joe.
Yes.
And Dr. Joe was talking to us about resilience. And in there, we had a little bit about monitoring, but I think we want to, we've got him back actually on the show. We don't normally have our guests back, but they're little.
He's there.
Yeah, here he is. Here he is with new glasses.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
Because I wanted to talk a bit about monitoring.
Look at this.
Because we have our new sponsor, Inside Tracker.
Yes.
But it's something that actually is part of what we're talking about anyway, part of kind of sovereignty and taking responsibilities. You have to measure to know what's going on. And really, Dr. Joe is the king of measuring and metrics. So for his little segment, we're not going to do the challenge, but actually I do it because Joe does monitor my Aura Ring data, which is one of the metrics we can talk about.
This is where we're going to learn about Sarah's calculations and data points, which is very personal. That's why we have Dr. Joe here, because we need to be ushered in here with a professional to Sarah's data.
Yeah. Joe's totally and utterly sworn to secrecy, of course. And if he does tell anyone, I would have to go over there and send in the voice with.
Yeah. Okay, that being said, Dr. Joe, how are you? Great to see you.
All is well. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. There is a big question when we track people and their data, that who owns their data? And that's really an important thing. That, it's your data, you own it. And it's just like, if you had a HIV positive test, is that going to be revealed? Or if you have these things. So it's definitely a thing that, we as a coach, you really don't want to, reveal stuff about their data because it is very personal. And when you get something like the Inside Tracker, which is, breaking you down as an individual to the minimalist level, blood, DNA, lifestyle habits, that's really, they're going to know the nitty gritty. Yeah. And you have to be in charge of your data. Don't forget. That's part of sovereignty too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And having a coach that you trust and making sure you've got all the systems in place, but still having the metrics that you can actually look at and follow. I think that's an integral part of your coaching, Joe. Maybe you could just talk us through why you think it's so important.
Well, we can't, we have to, we treat to an outcome. So when the people ask us, what is it that, what should I do? I mean, you have all these techniques. You have photobiomodulation, you have the, brain, you have nasal, you have blood. What should we do? Well, it really depends on what your outcome. What is it that you want? I mean, do you want to have more energy? Do you want to sleep better? Do you want to recover from a concussion or an injury or a physical problem? Is it more of an emotional type of thing that you're looking for? Because, when you put light on the body, many things can change. But if you don't monitor them, you don't have any data. You don't have any information. You can say, well, I don't feel any different. But, the question is, how is that possible? If you put your hand in a microwave and I turned it on for 20 minutes and you pulled it out and you said, well, I really don't feel anything. That doesn't make sense, because the energy, in our case, light energy, is entering your body more or less to some degree. It's going to have some effect. We just have to get a data point to watch that.
Yep.
And when you have something like the Inside Tracker that's able to get, down to the nitty gritty of a personalized system, that should give us a great deal of insights as to what is your sticking point? Where is the linchpin? Where is the wheels not rolling in this black box, which is the human system?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think about like having the genetics part? Because for me, that's been hugely useful, because you're not so much tracking what you're doing, you're looking at predispositions, which again is something, especially if you're working with a coach, but even if you are working on your own, that's a really cool data points to have.
Well, what they're doing, really, what you're doing when you take an algorithm, right? And that's like machine learning. So they're you have a personalized platform that's going to give you personalized nutrition and supplements, optimal biomarker zones for your numbers, right? And if you're really looking at the individual, it's really digging deep into this. What is your genetics? What is it how is it going to interfere with you getting the outcome that you want? As an example, drug companies now do a genetic screen for Oxycontin, right? Because some people have a genetic makeup that doesn't allow the drug molecule to interact with the receptors on your nervous system, right? So those are the people that take a lot, and don't have any effect. To be important to know, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that these guys are going to be able to uncover these little, what do you want to call them? Personal glitches that just, well, it should work for you. Well, but it's me. It's not like a trial of 3,000 people.
And what's interesting there, Joe, is that you often say these things like, I mean, I find myself, especially I eat something, I'm like, God, I feel like crap. Or I feel I just feel out of it today. But to be able to identify that and narrow it down to something that is measurable and something that you can take action against is incredibly important. I mean, I think that's why I'm so drawn to Sarah and to you, Joe, and, in a professional way, of course. But that, you provide that for us and our audience as an understanding of, it's not just a feeling you have, but there's something that you can actually do and take action against that. Change the way you eat, change your exercise regimen, sleep differently, sleep better. Those are all things that kind of, jump into that. So to get a better understanding of those numbers, that's something where I think there's a lot of still confusion. I get all these reports. What do I do with all of it now?
When you look at the individual, if you don't have that, this is what I'm trying to point out is that this is an approach that's been around for a while. And when you look at Alzheimer's people, what you're trying to do is the same thing. Why do you go and talk to your doctor and he's not listening? So his ability to listen is one thing. His ability to analyze your data is another thing. And the point is, if we move into machine learning and algorithms, and we start with the basics, we feed in, this is your data, right? This is your punch card, basically, right? Then, and then if the data comes into the machine, you don't have to talk to the doctor, right? So my sleep, my steps, my activity level, and I start to get on their plan of this is what you eat for your body. This is, I did a bunch of these things. I've been interested in this as a while, the quantified self approach that we kind of, as biohackers, kind of point to. You sort of miss it. And you can't really stand up and say, well, I'm different. People don't really, I don't have that problem, but a lot of other people do. And that's really how you can sort of unravel this thing. And you don't really want to, it's not making a diagnosis, but it's moving you as a singular individual towards actionable and meaningful steps to reach the goals that you want.
There's this thing though, that if you knew before you did something, if I knew before I was going to put something into my body that I was going to have a visceral reaction to it, or then I wouldn't put it in my body. But to know beforehand, well, these are some of the markers you should be looking out for. I mean, this is what we have available to us now as, a more technologically advanced future, or world where we can track all these things and take these numbers. That to me seems like probably one of the most powerful things that we have in front of us, to be able to know before we do something that it could be bad for us or make us feel terrible.
Think about this, that, I was going to get my PhD in biomedical engineering when I finished chiropractic college. And then my wife said, I'm pregnant. And we had to go start to work. But the reality of it is I'm doing that right now. I'm building technologies, and I'm, really pretty much on the cutting edge of what sort of stuff is out there and what's happening, as well as Sarah. She's, making some unbelievably great things. So we're basically, right at the point of the spear. So think about this. If you had, there was a company that I worked with a couple of years ago that did something very similar to this. And the whole AI would then punch out this. They did this for dementia people or mild cognitive impairment people, so that they would punch out the daily rigmarole and stuff that you would need to do and eat and, supplements. And so we have the sheet. These are the things that you should do. And if we highlighted them, this is your weakest spot, and this is your highest spot. Coffee is good for some people, bad for others, in a sense, right? So red meat is good for some people, bad for others, right? So if we could narrow this down, and inside tracker really appears to be, launching into this field at record speed. I think it's going to be very excellent for all people, not just optimizers, but people who, have a little wear on the tires.
That's such a good way to put it, Joe. All right, so maybe summarize for us then. What do you think, where should people start with monitoring? Because some of this stuff is quite intense to jump straight into, say, for example, the genetics. But where would you start people off, and how would you kind of incrementally get them to quantify what they're doing so that it becomes useful and not overwhelming?
Well, the reality is, change is painful in most senses, Change is painful. So the reality of it is how strong of a pain. So your diagnosis is very painful and you want to make a change. But what is the greatest gift you think you could give to your children? My professor of the anatomy of the central nervous system in chiropractic college, he said that you should journal every day, because that's the legacy that you give to your children. You know what I mean? A child of 15 can't understand what the father of 40 is going through. So maybe that's a good reflection. Do you follow me? So maybe that's a way to track yourself. That's very easy. But, that's kind of hard. It's easy to strap something on and do these other things, because really the gift that you can give them is your genetic material, is your genetic workup. This is what I have. This is the way I am, which means this is somewhat what you are. And wouldn't you really like to have that in your genealogy? I have a great cartoon in my presentation that says, I know this is what you have because my father treated your father for these diseases in the last, generation, right? Mm-hmm. When you go in for the $100,000, executive, the guys are making $4 billion a year as the CEO, they say they put you through a week at the Mayo Clinic and do all the testing on you to make sure that you're going to be alive to make the company money. At the end, they say, what'd your father have? What'd your mother have? What'd your grandfather have? That's what you're going to have. So work with it. Right? So take a generalization and make it into something extremely specific. I think it's valuable, period. But that's not usually enough motivation for people. So, I would say, do it.
Which is shocking that it's not, right? It's shocking that that's not enough motivation. I mean, I watched my mother die. I watched at 52 years old from cancer. Like, if that wasn't a warning sign of it all, does it mean that I'm exercising regularly? Does it mean that I'm eating well? And no, it doesn't mean that this is almost 25 years ago. But you have to take that into account. And we just, Sarah and I just interviewed someone, and one of his lines stuck with me, which was, how are you going to choose to live the rest of the days of your life? If you only have X amount of days, because we're all going to die. Mm-hmm. How do you choose to live those? And I think it's, we have choice, right? We are lucky that we have choice. So now that we have information that informs those choices, one of them being your history, others being data now, we should be living our best lives every single day, right? So let's take the Rebel Scientist podcast and share people like you, Dr. Joe, to give people a better version of themselves, right? I don't know. I think that's totally right.
And for a lot of these tracking things, they actually do take into account that kind of apathy of people, and they sort of gamify it to a point where you want to do better than X. So a lot of these, you can compare your data. I mean, Joe and I, when we're doing the coaching, we have a chart so we can look to see, okay. And often Joe says, well, my HRV is better than yours this week. So there are ways that are not, there's more of a carrot than a stick sometimes. You don't always have to use the stick. It's not always moving away from pain. Sometimes it's just, you're moving towards better health. You're in a bit of a competition. You want to do better. And I think that's the good thing about a lot of these monitoring apps. If you're informed, you can make a choice. If you're not informed, it's very difficult to make a choice. I've had all my genetics done, and I actually got my dad done because I wanted all the information, because as you know, when you do the DNA, you really only get your mother's side. So I, sent the kit off to my dad. He did it. I think he had no idea what he was doing actually, but anyway, he gave me his data. But I then found, okay, I have a propensity for Alzheimer's, for example, and that has totally motivated me. And as you know, today I'm just about to launch a product that's going to be helpful for people with neurodegeneration, because I was totally spurred on by that information. I have the APO4 double, which is, whatever it is, a higher risk. Joe's making a face at me now. But yeah, so I think it can go both ways. You're right. It is difficult to motivate, but I think these products, these new apps and things that are out are really helpful in that if you get a good one that gives you some nice information in a digestible way, then it's cool. And if it's overwhelming, there are people like Dr. Joe who do excellent coaching, which is another thing that I want to put out there, because people,
That's right.
People spend more money on their cars and their pets, getting them all tuned up and doing everything, than, actually set aside some money to actually get a coach if this is something that you're struggling with, because then you're kept on, you have someone to keep you accountable, which is maybe, what some people are missing in all this.
Yeah. Dr. Joe, how do people find you? Or are you a ninja here? Are you only available to Sarah, and people have to go through Sarah to get to you?
I'm not easy to get to, but yeah, you can just, Pro Neuro Light is my website, where we sell a suite of transcranial photobiomodulation devices. So people who want to get better, this is a great way to jumpstart, changing your DNA. Let's just put it out there. I mean, it's going to change you, and it's going to change the expression of your genetics. So that's just the hard cold facts of it. We're going to change you, and sometimes we need to hold a hand, and sometimes we need to walk you through this. We have this science, we have this data. I'm sure that the Inside Tracker people have set up a system to kind of walk people through that. We're about giving people the energy to kind of overcome things. Most people don't really get the idea that you need energy to heal. And in order to get that energy, you've got to kind of plug the holes and fill up the bucket so that you can make this launch. And I think these are the approaches, these are the tools that fit into the approach of getting you more energy into your system.
Totally. Well,
cool. Thank you, Joe.
Dr.
Thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, I mean, it was super cool. Like I say, we normally do a challenge, but I think we've kind of done it and we've covered all we wanted with it's just good to have the facts out there for people, because it is a bit of a minefield. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on again, Joe.
Great. Thank you for bringing this product to your audience. I think it's going to be a real game changer for many, many people. Thanks for talking with me.
Yeah, we think so too. Take care.
The Rebel Scientist Podcast is a Breaking the Gray production, created by Russ Eisenman and Paul Wood, hosted by Sarah Turner, music and sound editing by Logan Shea. For more information and other fantastic podcasts, visit breakingthegray.com. That's gray with an E, breakingthegray.com.
Breaking the Gray.
This week's episode brought to you by Inside Tracker. For more information, go to insidetracker.com/rebelscientist.